This came out yesterday, Justin. Want to get your thoughts on it. New York Post reporting, obviously the Celtics went up for sale pretty quickly after the finals win there. Weird story, shocking story. Probably thought that they were going to have to sell this team eventually, but not this soon. And obviously there was some reporting earlier this summer that Wyc, the front-facing owner of the group here, only owned about 2-3% of the Celtics. It was his father who, was the big money behind the team here. And Irv Grousbeck effectively said that's it in terms of the spending here, in terms of all these extensions and luxury tax hits that they're about to take on. And right from the start, I was like, this is a big deal. Like, this ownership group spent a lot of money to get this championship here, spent a lot of money to keep all these players on board as they're going to have this season and beyond. So now you don't know who's going to own this team into the future. There's been a lot of wacky rumors. None of them seem to be, substantiated here. And in this reporting here, Celtics barely broke even last year and, on the verge of losing $80 million in terms of the money they have on the books here. Don't own their arena, so they're losing some money there. So they're in a weird money spot. And we always were like, all right, are they going to be able to spend to keep this team together here? And they did. But now you're asking, all right, can they actually pay the money it's going to take to keep this team together? And who's going to pick up this bill here? Because it's clearly not going to be the Grousbecks. Could this be a issue for them as they try to sustain this run here? Because we don't know who the owner is going to be.
I think it's an issue for every team. Like, I think this is the new reality we're in. Like, Steve Ballmer just let Paul George walk for nothing. Like, I think that should be, the 5-alarm fire to fans that lets you know that, it's we're in a different era. Bobby Marks has talked about how teams are going to have to take a 2-5 approach, where if you're in the second apron, you're in for 2 years, you're out for the other 3 years of a 5-year span. Otherwise, you start getting into those, ridiculous penalties that you're going to hit.
And the Celtics are there next year after this. It's going to be like $500 million combined between tax and salaries.
Right, and I think that's part of why the Cavs have been strategic, and that's probably been the biggest holdup when it comes to, like an Isaac Okoro extension. If he does take the qualifying offer, I think they would be in the luxury tax, but not the first apron. I think they want to avoid starting that repeater clock until they have to. I think after this coming season, that's when the Cavs are going to, jump up, whether that's, first or second apron. That's when, the Mobley extension is going to kick in. That's when, they're going to be a more expensive team. And I think they understand that, but they want to avoid starting that repeater clock as quick, for as long as possible, and then kind of sprint over. And whether that's, at that point, after this coming season, you're going to have 2 more years of Donovan Mitchell's, current extension. I think those are going to be the 2 years where they try to be in that second apron, right? Delay a little bit, make Boston, be more expensive. Other teams are going to be in a similar kind of spot. And then you hope that those 2 years are your window. And then, honestly, they're going to have a decision to make regardless at that point, because it's going to come down to, do we want to extend Donovan Mitchell for ages like 31 through 35 as someone that has had, his body break down a fair bit the last few years and is a little undersized at the shooting guard position. So, I think this is reality for all teams. They're going to have to figure out, all right, who are our essential guys and can we find value in the margins? And I think whether you're the Celtics, whether you're the Warriors, whether you're the Clippers, whether you're the Cavs, that's going to be forcing teams to make some really tough decisions, no matter who your ownership is or what position you're in. So I think your assessment earlier about, Porzingis or some of these other guys not being on the Celtics in a year or two is probably accurate, because teams are going to have to make those tough decisions. And it's going to come down to whether or not they find the value in the margins, whether they hit on their draft picks or find some undrafted guys or, second draft opportunities, stealing guys from other organizations. That's going to be really, really important. But, if you're Boston, you have to feel really good about winning back-to-back championships here and being contenders. So I think, from a financial standpoint, it's certainly worth it.
Yeah, they might have had the last super team effectively here, if that's what you want to call it, because they got in before these penalties went into effect, and now you have to figure out how to manage these guys. You mentioned George leaving. That's probably what it's going to be for them in my mind as I start to think about how this is going to come apart here. But there'll still be that $500 million bill with Porzingis' last year on his deal there that they have to contend with there. The extended holiday, is he still a guy who has value at that point that you could move off of and actually get some value back for? Or are you going to be forced to here we are again, split up the Jays to make the money work here. Those are going to be questions that they have to face in just a year from now, I think. So it's tough. And the Cavs did the same thing, right? They extended everybody, kept everybody, and now you have to figure out how to make that work once the penalties come.
Yeah, I mean, the one benefit for them is, when they extended these guys is incredibly important because, Darius Garland, when you look, I think if you look at the reported contract, it's like 36 million or something like that. Like people refer to that as a max, but like that's nothing, right? Like that's almost like Drew Holiday money. That's OG Anunoby money. Like
Porzingis is 30, yeah.
Right,
Even
right.
Holiday, I think his money, if he stays who he is going to age pretty well.
Yeah, like, and Mobley signed his kind of fun max. So I think unless he wins Defensive Player of the Year this year, it's not going to kick into that kind of excessive category. And then Jared Allen is on one of the best contracts in the NBA, and this extension, I think, if you would have waited to hit free agency, I think you would have got a lot more because in 2 years, when it jumps up to that 30 range or whatever. Like that's what Hartenstein is currently getting, and the cap's going to be higher at that time, right? Like, so that's going to be, I think I saw like reports of it being like 15, 16, 17% of the cap. That's nothing, man. Like if you're getting like borderline all-star production at a guy for 15 to 18% of the cap, that's such a benefit. And, if a trade opportunity doesn't come along to make, resolve fit issues or whatever, that's a guy you can still play 28 minutes at like that salary and still feel pretty good about it. Like if you're closing games with Mobley at the 5, you can do that. But I think in the meantime, thoroughly exploring whether or not this current iteration of the Cavs can work better with a better scheme and with internal growth and development. They brought in a ton of player development coaches and guys that are very, very, have strong reputations, whether it's Johnny Bryan, Jordan Ott, etc. Like, I think thoroughly exploring that as an option was the correct way to go.
We'll keep tabs on this story. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see who emerges as owners here, potential owners, Steve Pagliuca in the mix, but no one beyond that for now. The Globe's saying that they're still trying to assess what the value of the team's going to be here at this point, but definitely go check out that New York Post report. Some interesting information out there on where the Celtics sale stands. Hey, Bowie Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS